for what I don't admire about Esther be much shorter. Esther has shown throughout the story that she's very obedient and that she's very trusting in Mordecai and God, and that she's happy to accept what God's will for her life is. So with that happiness, it's sort of infectious within the palace, within all of her relationships. I think just the development of just the different settings within the character and within her life story, starting off as a young Jewish girl and her relationship with Mordecai and Rebecca, and then into becoming a queen, and then into saving her people. It's quite a story. So it's a lot of fun to experience those different things within the show.
Mordecai is a very good man. He's doing his best to walk a difficult line between his role as the leader of the Jewish people and a high place in the king's court. He's a man of character, and he has a good relationship with the people around him and really cares about the people around him. At the same time, I think he's respectful of the king and respectful of his role in the court, and tries to do a job on both sides of that line.
Well, Mordecai and Esther's relationship, it's been said it's sort of like a father-daughter relationship. It's a very special relationship. Mordecai is her teacher, her father figure. They trust each other very much, and she's very, she takes what he says very seriously. And I think he's taught her a lot, and he's been a huge part of developing her character as she's grown up.
Mordecai feels a great sense of responsibility to Esther, as expressed in his song, I Promised. And he's taken her under his wing and is attempting to protect her and to teach her the ways of the Jewish faith and teach her how to survive well in this society in which they find themselves now.
He takes care of her and he has her best interests at heart, but he's very firm in teaching her about God and about their religion and their faith and how to live a life within Persia, which at the time, even though they were in a Jewish community, there were still a lot of trials and challenges.
He hopes that she might be in a position of power to influence the ways of the court and the thoughts of the king, so that the Jews will be in a better and safer position in that society.
Xerxes has like a challenging character. He seems like he's very arrogant and pompous in the beginning, but then he slowly softens, and you see that he's capable of compassion and other things towards the end, and it's not just so much about himself. He cares very much about Esther and their relationship.
In the show, as King Xerxes, I try to demonstrate that the relationship between Esther and myself has a certain depth that actually King Xerxes himself maybe isn't quite as aware of, and learns more about who he is. So there's an affection there for sure. And even with Esther, I think that there's a respect of who King Xerxes is, and that's maybe shown early on in the show with Mordecai kind of establishing for Esther the value for her people and what she can do for her people by taking on this position of authority. I think as the play progresses, King Xerxes does actually have development and more depth into his character. At least the way I play it, I give it that sense, because I truly believe that Esther and King Xerxes, as much as we don't see on stage, will spend some time together. And that's where the influence she has on him must come from.
Yeah, I think that her influence on Xerxes obviously is quite profound, and even though we don't see some of the smaller things and necessarily how they communicate or how they affect each other, even in the very end, he saves her people, right? So she has influence on him up until that point. I really like the relationship between Talea and Esther. I think that she helps keep her sane, and they can share their faith within the palace, and sort of like a best friend, a mentor.
My favorite part as far as Talea goes is in actually the song that we just did out there, which is A Time Is This. I feel like she is the encouragement for Esther, and she gives her strength and that kind of a thing. And that's probably my favorite part, is the fact that Talea is just kind of like she's her best friend, but she's also her handmaid at the same time. But they develop a nice friendship, and I think that's my favorite part with Talea. She's a strong character, and she gives her strength.